now the Anglican Council is meeting as we speak in Jamaica. And it's very interesting that they're not, they're having I would say, a very interesting meeting. They are absolutely unanimous and unified on those things that Anglicans do best. They have talked about new initiatives in theological education internationally, in education internationally, in work toward elimination of hunger and these other kinds of social ills. They've been absolutely unanimous about all that. There's a whole new initiative in biblical interpretation in the Anglican Communion that got unanimous support. I mean, it's amazing. As long as the topic in Jamaica has stayed on mission, on doing what Jesus would have us do, there have been no barriers. When we get to talking about other things, the barriers begin to emerge, and interestingly enough, the communion on those other things are divided almost exactly 50-50. Every divisive resolution they've had down there, it seems to me, has been 33-30, or something like that. But when they stay focused on mission, the excitement just goes to the ceiling and so forth. And I think, friends, there's a lesson in that. The lesson in that may very well be that we are really rediscovering the values of what it means to live by the gospel. Because, most of the things that we disagree on in the life of the church and the Anglican Communion are actually inventions of the church. They are matters about which the Scripture says virtually nothing, and Jesus says absolutely nothing. But when we stay focused on those things that were very clearly near to the heart of Jesus, what Jesus understood himself to be about, what Jesus understood the people who followed him to be about, and when we stay focused on those kind of things, it's a matter